You know, from when we were at your victory party back in November, could you have imagined how this was going to go 8 months now into the job? Is this what you thought it would be?
No, it's so much more different than that. I mean, I think my residents are the same. Their issues are the same. My passion is the same. But I mean, it's still surreal to me every time I walk onto the United States, House floor. My father only had 4th grade education, my mother 8th grade education. And here I am, the first in the family to graduate from high school and college and go on and help run these amazing movement work and nonprofit agencies. But I'm there, and not only that, I mean, I think so many people see the national, narrative about me, but it's what's lacking, I think, is I'm so much more just a Muslim and a Palestinian woman, but I'm also this girl that grew up in Southwest Detroit that's got a little grit, and a little fight in her. And then one of the best questions I got asked, I think my first month is why do you fight so hard? I was like, thank you for asking me that, because let me tell you my story. Let me tell you about the fact that my father had cancer. Let me tell you about, the fact that I grew up in a community where we had 3 high schools and now we only have 1. And the rest are charter schools and not really providing for our kids, right? And I tell them I fight because I have 2 incredibly wonderful boys that shouldn't grow up being afraid to tell people their background, their ethnic or faith background, that are also asking me, what are we doing about our AR mom? My 14-year-old tells me all the time, 2030 is around the corner, do something, mom. But it has been an incredible journey, and the one humbling experience is my residents, many of which, the majority of which, do not share my faith. They don't share my ethnic background, and they believed in the possibility of someone like me that doesn't take corporate PAC money. It's not as your polished politician, I'm still that girl from Southwest Detroit that cannot stand corporate greed. I cannot stand corporate bullies. I can't stand it when my residents feel like they're less than because some billionaire comes along and says, you don't need these millions of dollars to your school district. I need to build a stadium. And I'm telling them, no, it can actually be different, and let me show you why, and let me show you how. And that's the part that I keep bringing forward and centering on. One of the things I tell my staff every committee hearing in DC is, let's bring the residents in the room with us. How do we do that? So we always start with a story of somebody impacted by college debt, if that's what the hearing's about. If it's about air quality, about PFAS, I tell people, these contaminated, it's not only in rural areas. Guess what? I found it in Melvindale, in Delray, in Detroit. I mean, this is real, and let me tell you what is actually happening to my residents at home, and then I get into the policy. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey, but coming home to the 4 neighborhood service centers keeps me rooted in the community, keeps me grounded. That's where I get all my bill ideas. That's where I feel sane. Am I crazy, or is this how it's supposed to be? Why does everybody think this is normal? It's not normal to smell like rotten eggs after your kids have played outside. It's not normal to have this many trucks come through by parks and schools. It's not normal that we're closing schools every single day, but then providing these big tax giveaways to mega billion-dollar corporations. It's not normal.
Is it hard to have that dual narrative of what maybe Washington, D.C. or national media perception is of you versus what the perception is of you at home and people who know Rashida Tlaib? Has that worked in your favor, or has that negatively impacted what you've been able to do or attention to bring to the 13th?
Yeah, I mean, the 4 neighborhood service centers I created within 6 months of me being in office has really been kind of the heart and soul of my public service. I bring that forward every time I talk about these issues, but I bring forward, I don't care what they're asking me, I will go around and say, well, let me talk to you. The American story that you haven't heard is my district is the 3rd poorest congressional district in the country. And they elected me because I was different, not because of my background.
Do you find sometimes that you have to spend more time getting past the initial headline that's coming out about you or around you or what they're asking you to comment on to be able to then push forward the issues that you want to? Where's the balance there?
No, I use that opportunity to talk about my residents, and I do a fairly good job lately of doing that, and it's been interesting because It is. I'm so much more than this narrative out there, which I love that it inspires. You know, this 8-year-old girl came up to me and she had this shirt on. It was beautiful, this blazer, and she kept going like this, and that's the mom cue of like, oh, she wants me to say something about her blazer. I said, well, that's a really nice blazer, and she goes, I'm trying to look like you, and I said, well, okay, well, you don't have to run for Congress. You should run for president. And she goes, uh-huh, and I thought to myself, well, that's an incredible, like. To me, that's something I'm inspiring, obviously, a whole nation of these beautiful young girls that now see themselves here. But I also hope they see themselves as beyond their identity, like you can fight like me. You could be who you are and fight just like me. You know, not backing down and being strong and not allowing bullies and others to try to put you in this box that's all you are, that you are also this person that wants to combat poverty and push back against corporate bullies and corporate polluters. You could be all those things and be proud of everything, you know, all the, for me, my grandmothers who helped raise me, my mother, my father, all of these incredible people in my life that taught me that justice has to be like part of your soul as you move forward, because that's who you are. You as a Palestinian, of your family struggling for equality there, to, you know, be Muslim in America, all of that is so connected to why I fight so hard.
Do you think you have changed the conversation about women in power, especially given the women and the attention that you've received in Congress and the squad label of you and some of your other freshman colleagues? Are you tired of that label yet, or is it okay to still keep pushing forward with that?
Well, you know, personally, my original squad is the 13th district. And I tell them all the time, I said, this is my squad. And the squad is so much bigger than just us four. But what I love about us four is we all, many of us didn't really know each other until we got there, but it was our shared values. And organically, everybody on the outside did it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't, you know, come forward and say, this is what we're gonna be all of a sudden. And at first I was like, what is that? Like, what do you mean the squad, you know? It's like some sort of like, hey, but it's anybody that believes in equitable justice. It's anybody that believes that people have to breathe clean air. Then you're part of the squad. That you're part of people that want to serve in Congress, unapologetically fighting for issues that I feel like has been, you know, not as at the forefront as it should be. You know, people always talk about in the same breath when they used to talk about Marathon Oil Refinery, jobs. Well, now I'm saying let's start with jobs can't fix cancer, and then let's move from there. So all of us, not only my four colleagues, a number of my colleagues, are incredibly authentic and real. Some have never held office before. One woman has never had health insurance until she became a member of Congress. Another is a survivor of domestic violence. I love that, you know, one ran on the fact that she has a pre-existing condition. She's a nurse, and that's what she fights for, is health care. I love that these are real people. Many of them are women that are coming with their authentic self forward on these issues with the sense of urgency that you hear from me sometimes. Is exactly mimics their urgency because they're living that experience now.
You're here every week.
Yes.
What are the people of the 13th telling you? And again, in that kind of parallel, different vision of who you are here versus what you have to do to survive and get around in DC.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, coming home every single week is grounds me. It reminds me of why I even ran in the first place. And the district, you know, common theme is don't sell us out. Just don't, you know, do what you're doing right now. And if there's anything else that, you know, you could do, you know, keep pushing it. But my residents are thrilled with the service centers, and they're thrilled about, you know, Rashida, you had a hearing on auto insurance. Thank you. We have the highest rates of auto insurance. We had a housing crisis committee hearing recently here about what happened with the Wayne County tax foreclosure issue and the crisis there. So we brought that forward, and now we're going to probably ask for an investigation into that. The fact that people were denied getting their homes assessed. A lot of conversation around what can we do about the education system right now. So we started a task force on the education issue. But all of my legislative work groups that I created are grassroots organizations here. My legislative work group here, convenings happen here, not in DC. because it's national organizations, some of which that work on environmental justice might be working on wildlife. But here we're working on air quality and trying to reduce asthma and trying to address the fact that we're now seeing a spike of cancer in areas that we never saw before. It is that kind of work that they're saying, finally bringing that forward. Not in the way where I say it's bad, but like going beyond just saying, I agree that we need to do something, but actually doing something, and the way we do it is bringing their human stories forward. And when you do that, when I introduced that bill that I did with Senator Peters saying pet coke, should be on the toxic list, we should be doing something about it, there is a connection, a human connection that I think always gets lacking, always gets disconnected when people work in Congress.
Talk to me about what some people say to you, like, we're going to be here this afternoon when hopefully this gym is going to be packed and you'll be talking about environmental justice essentially here in this area of the state. What do they say to you when they come up to you? And I would assume that everyone's either got a criticism or something else to say or something to add, or you should be doing this, or what are some of the conversations that you have with people?
No, I get a commonality is water is a human right. You make sure you say that, Rashida, because I have a right to drink clean water. Why is my child going to a school that doesn't have clean water? What do I pay my taxes for? Why is it that we get chosen second and profits are first? I hear people saying, one woman today, we have a right to breathe clean air. That's all. I'm not asking for access to a country club, Rashida. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for clean air. So there's a sense of this. They're living this experience now, and they just want to feel heard and believed. Our water right now going into our homes might be actually infested with lead. People are really fearful of that their public health, that themselves, their right to breathe, their right to live is at jeopardy if we don't do something about it immediately.
How do you tell them then to trust government? Trust what I'm doing in Washington or what I'm trying to do in Washington, that the system does work, that we can help you in some way, when a lot of people have absolutely no faith that you guys can't agree on anything in Washington or get anything done.
Yeah, and I'm one of them, even though I'm there. But the thing is, people like us don't think about running for office, and I think that's part of the biggest problem is getting people in the institute. But more importantly, I'm reminded I always remind my residents, and I'll probably talk about it today, that transformative change on civil rights, transformative change even on getting women access to vote, didn't happen in the halls of Congress or in the White House. It happened because of the consciousness in the streets, the movement work in the streets. I mean, you see us now finally moving Fight for 15 passed out of the House, the minimum wage, one fair wage. That didn't happen because somebody introduced a bill in Congress and had an awakening. No, it's because local municipalities were passing them, local communities. They were getting arrested on the streets in front of McDonald's and service industries saying, we have a right to a living wage. We have a right to provide for our children. And so I'm reminded of that because I grew up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country where every corner is a reminder of the civil rights movement. I remember as a young person hearing Grace Lee Boggs say that it has to be done in the streets. It has to be done in movement work. We cannot rely just on the consciousness of Congress and so forth. It has to start with all of us.
Your kids are watching you very closely,
Yes,
and I'm sure they're probably
my 14-year-old.
getting some flack a little bit. They see headlines, they read things.
Oh, yeah.
How do they adjust with what you do, and what do you say to them about what you're doing?
So my 14-year-old is probably the most aware of what I do than my 8-year-old. But my 14-year-old, Adam, I remember him coming up to me and saying, Mom, I don't get it. Why is everybody talking about capitalism, socialism? What about peopleism? He grounds me. And I was like, you're right, baby. You're absolutely right. It has to be about people first. And then I remind him that there's more humanists in this world, people like us that understand the human impact, understand we have to be humanists first before we're Republicans or Democrats or capitalist, social, whatever these labels that we put on each other. But so much of, he has no idea, like I'm trying to console him, and this 14-year-old child is like saying things to me that just make me smile, like, oh my God, that's the next generation, that he gets it, that I'm like, I can't wait for them to run for office. I love it. I was in a meeting with Chairwoman Maxine Waters talking about divesting in fossil fuel investments. And my son was with me, he was on break, and he's with me in Washington, D.C., and I take him to all meetings because he loves it. And he sits in the background, he goes, Mom, give me a piece of paper. I was like, for why? I was like, in the meeting, And he goes, just give me a paper. So I, as a mom, I had some envelope and moms do this all the time. I rip this like blank envelope.
Here's just a little thing of paper and just pass it along.
And I just give it to him. And I'm thinking he's going to sketch or something. He usually does that. And he passes me a note, and I still have it, that said, Mom, make sure you tell them we only have until 2030, that the planet only has until 2030. After the meeting, I get it, I smile. And after the meeting was done, and to 2 members of Congress, Chairwoman Maxine Waters stands up, and I said, I know you all heard my son, who wasn't really whispering, asking me for a piece of paper. Do you know what he wrote? And I showed them. And at that moment, you could see it, all of them having this like reminder of like why we're here,
this is
why
what
we
you're doing
fight.
it for.
Exactly. But yeah, it's amazing, and I'm constantly reminding not only my nieces, my nephews, all of my extended family. I'm the eldest of 14, so I have a huge family that's constantly watching and seeing. And they believe me when I tell them there's more people like us with this consciousness for humanity than there are those that are saying these ugly, hateful things. And you have to outwork the hate. You have to. You have to be so grounded in that, and you have to outwork the hate. You do it through love. You do it through the service centers. You do it through these kinds of hearings of starting off with saying, I believe you all. I believe you are now breathing in dirty air. That I believe you, that you feel like you deserve better. I believe you. And if we start with that, I think we can really have transformative change and support the movement work that happens outside of the halls of Congress. And I'm excited. I'm excited to be that extension for all of them. And I love that my resident's like, you're so different. And it's not because of my ethnicity, it's because of how I talk about it. And how, if anything, I'm still their daughter. I was raised here. I saw it. I lived it.
Do you field a lot of phone calls and texts from your extended family saying, Rashida, you should do this,
Oh,
or maybe
good.
you should do this next time, or way to go, or what is that
Well,
like?
I love it. So, of course, the famous first day I get sworn in, of course, I use a terminology out there that, for me is just who is part of like, the part of my authentic self, And I remember one of my seniors calls me, I call her seasoned residents, one of my residents called me after that, and she goes, hey, I don't use that word. I don't think anybody should use those words. And I said, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And she goes, but I have to tell you, I felt more liberated when you did. And I'm smiling over the phone, and I said, okay. She goes, I know that you're as angry as I am. But you speaking like that, speaking about it in that way, I felt it, and I felt more freer because you're there and you are speaking truth to power. So I think there is always this hesitation, but more of like protecting me and wanting to make sure I do well. So many call me and say, what can we do to help or support? Those that always want to kind of give advice it's always about things that I think don't matter, which is my hair. But I love my mothers in the community and others that, come from a school of thought that you have to be dressed a certain way, you have to look a certain way. And I tell them, no, I can be in my jeans and my backpack with my bullhorn, and I'll still be able to wear my pin and still be as equal as anybody else that represents 650,000 people. You don't have to fit the same mold. And I don't want to. It's just I'm not comfortable in that skin. This is who I am.
We're rolling into an election year, obviously. I want to talk a little bit about the economy and how it's impacting your constituents and the opportunity for jobs or opportunity for job training and the importance of that in the area right now.
So I think one of the things I did immediately, one of the first bills I introduced is the Boost Act. And I have the third poorest congressional district in the country. And the people that are working, a lot of them working poor, they're in the service industry. They're in an industry that is not going to lead to a pension, a humane retirement avenue for them, or a job that's going to help them send their children to college if they wanted. And so for me, I needed to show them what was possible. And so I repealed the GOP tax scam, is what I like to call it. President Trump and some of his supporters in Congress passed this pretty much a tax break for the wealthy. And that's what it was. I mean, most of the corporations use that big tax break to give shareholders a big payout. I repealed that, and I said, nope, we're going to do earned income tax credit on steroids. We're going to shift this and give people a tax credit between $3,000 to $6,000, up to $6,000 if you make less than $100,000. But get this, you can also be a student, be on disability income, maybe not be working and still get up the minimum of $3,000. It would uplift 45% of Americans living in poverty right now out of poverty. 45%, that's half of people living in, close to half of people living in poverty right now in the United States. That would be uplifted, just showing people, because I love when people ask me, how are you gonna pay for it? It's like, the GOP tax scam, that didn't really do much. It didn't. I mean, if you look at it, what it did much of is supporting big mega billion-dollar corporations. Not even my small businesses are benefiting from it. And when I put money in the pockets of everyday Americans that are struggling, literally $400 away from getting into the cycle of poverty, that feeds right into our local economy. Everybody has said, nonpartisan think tanks have said, put money in regular Americans, they turn around and they spend that money right in their local neighborhoods and their community, which helps small businesses, help viability, and to me, creates a more of a sustainable pathway for people to live with a good quality of life.
Let's talk a little bit about immigration, where we are right now. You have a lot of people who are fearful of deportation, especially where we live. And also you've got dreamers in Michigan who feel like that they are still waiting for something to be done. Talk about what the conversations are right now in Congress, and are we going to get anywhere?
Yeah, and that's the hard part, is that you have a hate agenda right now coming out of the administration. And that's what it is. If you look at what they're doing in HUD, in housing, immigration, but even economic-wise, they are targeting a whole class of Americans that fit into this, I call it othering. They're othering folks. They're kind of putting the focus on this kind of hate agenda, which if you look at who's benefiting the most on the broken immigration system, it's the same corporations he gave the tax break to. They're the ones caging up the children, making $750 a day, some of them. These are the same companies that are feeding into the mass incarceration, the for-profit prisons that we have in this country. The same people that funded his inauguration committee, all of that is so interconnected with the fact that he continues to feed in allowing an inhumane immigration system to exist. There are members of Congress that are bringing forward horrifying stories, people with medical illnesses that are now getting put in the process of deportation. These are people that if they left, they would actually die in their native country. We even saw it here in Michigan with this young man who had diabetes, who was deported. He was born in a refugee camp in Greece. He comes here, and all of the issues and challenges he had, they still put him on a plane without even contacting family members, and they sent him to Iraq, where he's never been. We need a much more humane, American, value-driven immigration system. And we cannot continue to allow, all of us to vilify this whole community and saying that's why we're suffering. No, it's the same people that don't believe you need a tax break, or the same people that are, turning our education system into a for-profit industry.
So where's the common ground then? Because you can have all of these stances and ideas and even push through certain policies, but if you don't get agreement on the other side, if you don't have any Republican buy-in, where do we end up? Yeah, we have to continue putting forward what the system and how broken it is, right? That's the one thing that came during committee. You'll hear some of my colleagues on the other side say, yeah, it is broken. I said, well, let's fix it together, because there are immigrants right now, literally my immigrant neighbors, who are married to U.S. citizens, for years have been here, and they can't adjust their status here. Or the dreamers. These are folks that we know, if we give them a pathway, that actually are going to strengthen our country. We're going to benefit from allowing them to be able to have access to a pathway to citizenship. Why can't we come to that common ground, right? And I'm still waiting for the Senator McCain of our caucus. I remember watching some of my other Republican colleagues, even as an activist in the street, that were like, yes, we need a fair and just immigration system. But until we recognize it's broken and agree that this is the pathway, because a wall's not going to do it. And that's the one thing that they agree, at least. They're like, nope, we know the wall's fake. But they won't publicly say it. They won't go out there and say it. They'll say things in committee, but then around the corner they know. Have you had to figure out who the show horses are from the workhorses? Yes, right away I can usually tell.
where they go out, they say things, and then before the committee, and then on the side they say this is madness. Then say something, right? You know, the political courage that's lacking when it comes to the immigration issue is very prevalent. But, you know, a black pastor in my district said something profound to me, and it's always resonated. It's Pastor Bland Jr., and he said, we're not a country that's divided, we're a country that's disconnected. And I feel like when this comes to this issue, we're disconnecting. I think if you look at the people, again, benefiting from the broken immigration system, the people making actual money and detaining and imprisoning and allowing immigrants to live in this shadow and this workforce that we all know exists out there, getting, you know, wage theft is high among there, allowing them to not be able to come forward and be paid living wage, all that is connected to the same people that are pushing, you know, for the big tax breaks, you know, for the rich and so forth. They're all the same corporations, if we open up the curtains, that are trying to dismantle our public education system. Just not talking about restorative justice, but mass incarceration. If you open up that curtain, it's the same individuals, and I feel like that needs to happen for us to be able to move forward and say we have to do something to fix our immigration system.
We've danced around the name, but we haven't quite said it yet, President Trump. It was no surprise, I think, to everyone who lives in your district and in this area that you came out vehemently for impeachment.
I ran on it.
And then you ran on it.
Yeah.
Because in 2016, when he gave his speech to the Econ Club, you were one of the people who stood up and disrupted it and was escorted out. I mean, it was plain as day. I mean, there was really no secret as to how you felt about it. Have you had anyone come from your party and say, look, it's an election year, we need to tone down impeachment? Or have you, what kind of conversations have you had, and where are you with this?
Yeah, no, I mean, what's incredible is that this past election, if you look at the numbers, I mean, it was high. I mean, I had a 60% increase in my district of turnout in a non-presidential election year. But even statewide, you saw, you know, just massive turnouts in the last election. And I really believe it was a referendum on this current administration, that it was a calling to say, we're electing the jury that will hold this administration accountable. And I am very much standing by the fact that that's what I'm supposed to do as a member of House Oversight Committee, is hold his administration accountable. We've already held 3 members of his cabinet in contempt for misleading Congress, for not following through on congressional subpoenas. I mean, we really are in a dangerous pathway that is directly impacting our democracy. The fact that we have an upgraded version of pay to play. I mean, this is a person now that if you want to do any business with his administration, you have to go stay at the hotel, in his hotel, Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. You saw it with T-Mobile, who wanted to merge with Sprint. T-Mobile spent like $200,000 at the Trump Hotel in the same breath that they were trying to get them to agree to the merger. One of the things that is very clear to me too is, you know, every single president before him, from President Carter, who divested in his bean farm, to every single one, if you were CEO, you had to walk away from all of that when you took the oath of office. And when you don't, it is directly in violation of our United States Constitution. And we're getting far away from that because he's distracting us, right? Not only with the tweets, but the hate rhetoric. He's distracting us from the fact that, yeah, he's actually using our federal government. He's running his business. He's a CEO sitting in the White House that is putting his businesses first, because he knows this is not a permanent gig for him, right? When he leaves office, he goes right back into his, you know, international and domestic businesses. That's really dangerous. That for us, you know, the corridor to power is through his hotels, is through his businesses, and we see it, him shifting money and dollars out of the military to support, you know, some of his resorts that are really going under. We saw that recently. I mean, it's direct violation of the United States Constitution. All I can do is put my country first and put our Constitution first. I mean, I took the same oath. When a veteran in my district goes to me, I would have already been dishonorably discharged with half of the things he says and even his actions. The fact that we're allowing a president to continue blatantly violating the land, you know, law of the land, is setting a dangerous precedent, because this will not be the last CEO that runs for president of the United States.